Athena was no ordinary goddess. Known to the Romans as Minerva, she embodied wisdom, strategy, and the balance between intellect and strength. She stood at the crossroads of war and peace, invention and tradition, justice and vengeance. Unlike Ares, the god of chaos and bloodlust, Athena was revered for her discipline. She was a goddess who valued cleverness and restraint, but when provoked, she became a relentless force. Her presence was unmistakable, clad in armor, a spear in hand, and often accompanied by an owl, the bird of wisdom. Across Greece, cities built temples to her honor, but none so famous as the Parthenon in Athens, where her statue stood towering in gold and ivory. Her myths reveal not only the divine power of the gods but also the values the Greeks cherished: intelligence, ingenuity, and the courage to fight with reason over rage. The story begins with a prophecy. When Zeus took Metis, the Titaness of wisdom, as his consort, he soon learned of a troubling fate. Metis was destined to bear children more powerful than their father. Afraid of being overthrown, Zeus tricked Metis into transforming herself into a tiny insect, and in that moment, he swallowed her whole. For a time, Zeus believed he had escaped his doom. But within him, Metis continued to live, and with her, the child she carried. Soon, Zeus began to suffer excruciating headaches, so violent they shook Olympus itself. The king of the gods roared in pain, and the other Olympians gathered in fear. At last, Zeus begged Hephaestus, the divine smith, to split open his skull and end his torment. With one mighty swing of his hammer, Hephaestus cracked open Zeus's head. From the cleft leapt a warrior, fully grown, radiant, and clad in gleaming armor. She let out a cry so thunderous it echoed through the heavens. The gods stood in awe as Athena, goddess of wisdom and war, was born from the mind of Zeus himself. From that day forward, she became the favored daughter of Zeus, destined for greatness. Long ago, the land that would become Athens was flourishing, yet it had no divine patron. Both Poseidon, god of the sea, and Athena desired the honor of protecting the city. To settle their rivalry, Zeus decreed a contest, each would present a gift, and the people would choose whose gift was of greater value. The gods and mortals gathered on the Acropolis, watching as Poseidon stepped forward first. With a mighty strike of his trident, he split the ground, and from the earth burst a fountain of seawater. The people gasped in awe, but when they tasted it, they found it salty and undrinkable. Some say he brought forth a powerful horse instead, a symbol of war. Both gifts represented strength and dominance. Then came Athena. Kneeling down, she pressed her spear into the soil, and from it grew a slender olive tree. Its branches reached skyward, heavy with fruit. The people tasted its olives and discovered oil that could be used for food, light, and trade. It was not just a symbol of war or power but of peace, prosperity, and life itself. The people chose Athena's gift. From then on, the city bore her name, Athens, and she became its eternal guardian. To honor her, the Athenians built the Parthenon, a temple that still stands as a symbol of her wisdom and protection. Athena's gifts were not limited to war. She was also the goddess of crafts, especially weaving. Her skill was unmatched, or so it seemed. A young woman named Arachne was said to weave tapestries so breathtaking that mortals and even nymphs came from afar to see them. Whispers spread, her work rivaled Athena's own. One day, disguised as an old woman, Athena approached Arachne and warned her, "Show humility, child. Thank the gods for your talent." But Arachne scoffed. "My skill is mine alone. Let Athena herself challenge me if she dares." At that, Athena cast aside her disguise, revealing her divine form. A contest was declared. Looms were set, threads prepared, and the two began to weave. Athena's tapestry shone with glory, it depicted the gods in their majesty, their victories, their wisdom. But Arachne's tapestry was flawless, too. She wove scenes of the gods' flaws, Zeus's countless affairs, Poseidon's anger, Apollo's cruelty. Her artistry was unmatched, but her subject matter was an insult. Athena's eyes blazed with fury. Though Arachne's work was perfect, the goddess could not bear the mortal's insolence. With a touch, she destroyed the tapestry. Overcome with despair, Arachne tried to end her own life, but Athena took pity. She transformed Arachne into the first spider, condemning her to weave forever. Thus, the myth warns. Even unmatched talent must bow before the gods, lest pride become downfall. Among the greatest heroes of Greece was Perseus, tasked with slaying the Gorgon Medusa. Her gaze could turn any man to stone, and many had fallen attempting to face her. But Athena favored Perseus. She came to him, bearing a polished bronze shield, gleaming like a mirror. "Do not look upon her directly," she warned. "Use this to see her reflection. Only then can you strike." With Athena's guidance and Hermes' winged sandals, Perseus journeyed to Medusa's lair. As the monster slept, her hair of serpents hissing, Perseus crept forward. Holding the shield before him, he watched her reflection. At the right moment, he raised his sword and struck true, severing her head. From Medusa's blood sprang Pegasus, the winged horse, and Perseus carried the Gorgon's head back to Athena. The goddess mounted it upon her aegis, her fearsome shield, turning it into a weapon that struck terror into her enemies. The Trojan War was a stage for gods and mortals alike. Athena stood with the Greeks, her wisdom guiding their strategies. But her involvement ran deeper. It began with the judgment of Paris. Eris, goddess of discord, threw a golden apple inscribed, "For the fairest," among the goddesses. Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena each claimed it. Paris of Troy was chosen to decide. Hera promised him power, Athena offered wisdom and victory in war, and Aphrodite promised the love of the most beautiful woman in the world, Helen of Sparta. Paris chose Aphrodite, and in doing so, earned Athena's wrath. Throughout the war, Athena aided the Greeks. She stood beside warriors, gave Diomedes the strength to wound even Ares, and inspired Odysseus with cunning strategies. It was her idea, whispered into his mind, that birthed the Trojan horse, the deception that would finally end the war. Athena's vengeance was complete, Troy fell in flames. Yet her wisdom shaped the conflict as much as her fury, reminding all that war is won not only with strength but with cunning. After Troy's fall, many heroes were lost to the seas. But Odysseus, king of Ithaca, was different, cunning, patient, and resourceful. These were Athena's own virtues, and she became his greatest divine ally. When Poseidon sought to destroy Odysseus, Athena shielded him. When he was stranded on foreign shores, she disguised herself to guide him. She pleaded with Zeus to allow his return, never abandoning her favored mortal. At last, when Odysseus reached Ithaca, it was Athena who aided him in reclaiming his throne. Disguised as a beggar, he entered his hall, filled with arrogant suitors vying for his wife, Penelope. At the right moment, Athena revealed her power, guiding his arrows as he struck down those who had dishonored his home. Through Odysseus, Athena's values lived, intelligence, resilience, and the triumph of strategy over brute force. Athena's myths span from the birth of heroes to the fate of cities. She was not only a goddess of war but of civilization, invention, and justice. While Ares represented bloodlust, Athena represented the brilliance that turns war into strategy, chaos into order. She was both a warrior and a peacemaker, a stern judge and a compassionate protector. In every tale, she reminds us that true strength lies not only in power but in wisdom, courage, and cleverness. Even today, Athena endures, in art, in literature, and in the olive branch, still a symbol of peace. Zeus sat upon his throne, shaking Olympus with his groans. The gods had never seen him in such agony. His face was twisted, his hands clawed at his head as though his skull would split of its own accord. "Father, what torments you?" asked Apollo, his golden lyre silent in his hands. Zeus bellowed, "The pain, it is as if the earth itself hammers within me." At last, Hephaestus, god of the forge, approached with his hammer. With a deep breath, he raised it high. Crack! The blow rang like thunder. And from the split in Zeus's skull, a figure emerged, not an infant, but a warrior, tall and radiant, clad in gleaming bronze armor. A golden spear shone in her hand, and her battle cry echoed across heaven and earth. It was Athena, born of wisdom, born of war, born from the mind of Zeus. The gods fell silent in awe. From that moment, she became Zeus's dearest child, the goddess who would embody the perfect balance of intellect and power. The land of Attica prospered, but the mortals longed for a divine protector. Poseidon, mighty lord of the seas, strode forward first. He lifted his trident and struck the rocky earth. From the fissure burst a fountain of seawater, rushing upward with a roar. The people cheered, until they tasted it, and found it briny, undrinkable. Poseidon's eyes burned with pride. Behold my gift. With it, you shall command the seas and conquer nations. But Athena stepped forward calmly, planting her spear in the soil. From its tip sprouted a slender olive tree, its silver leaves shimmering, its branches heavy with fruit. The people touched its bark, pressed the olives into oil, and saw that it could feed, heal, and enrich them. This, said Athena, is the gift of peace, of life, of prosperity. With it, your city will flourish for all time. The people chose Athena, and the city was named Athens. Furious, Poseidon struck the land with droughts and storms, but Athena stood guard over her people. And on the Acropolis, the olive tree remained, a living reminder of her gift. In Lydia lived a maiden named Arachne, whose tapestries were so exquisite that mortals whispered she must have been taught by Athena herself. Yet when praised, Arachne's pride grew. Athena, she scoffed. My skill is greater than hers. Disguised as an old woman, Athena came to her. Child, give thanks to the gods for your gift, she counseled. But Arachne laughed. If Athena is greater, let her face me. If I lose, I will pay the price. The goddess revealed her true form, her eyes flashing like stormlight. The contest began. Athena's tapestry shone with glory, the gods enthroned, Olympus triumphant. Arachne's work was flawless, too, but cruel. She wove scenes of the gods' weaknesses, their deceptions, their sins. When both tapestries were done, even Athena was forced to admit, Arachne's was perfect. Yet rage consumed her. With one stroke she tore the tapestry apart. Overcome with despair, Arachne tried to take her life. Athena caught her, whispering, "You shall weave still, forever." And she transformed Arachne into a spider, cursed and blessed alike to spin her web for eternity. The hero Perseus stood trembling, for no mortal could face Medusa, whose gaze turned men to stone. But Athena descended beside him, her voice calm, her shield gleaming. Look not at her eyes, she warned, pressing the polished bronze shield into his hands. See her only in reflection. Let wisdom be your weapon. Guided by Athena, Perseus crept into the Gorgon's lair. The air stank of death, statues of men littered the ground. Medusa's serpents hissed, writhing in restless dreams. Step by step, Perseus drew near, eyes fixed on her mirrored image. With one swift stroke, his blade fell. The monster's scream shook the earth. From her blood leapt Pegasus, the winged horse. Perseus carried Medusa's head back to Athena. The goddess fixed it to her aegis, the shield that bore her protection, now also her terror. Enemies who gazed upon it froze in fear, turned to stone by the might of wisdom and war united. The spark of war began not with swords, but with vanity. Eris, goddess of discord, cast among the goddesses a golden apple inscribed, "To the fairest." Hera, Aphrodite, and Athena each claimed it. Paris of Troy was chosen as judge. Hera promised him dominion. Athena offered wisdom and victory. But Aphrodite whispered, "I will give you the most beautiful woman alive." Paris chose Aphrodite, and thus Athena's pride was wounded. When war broke out over Helen, Athena sided with the Greeks. On the battlefield she walked unseen, steadying the hands of warriors, guiding their arrows. She lent courage to Diomedes, who wounded even Ares himself. She counseled Odysseus, the most cunning of men, planting in him the idea of the Trojan horse. And so Troy, proud and mighty, fell not to brute force but to deception, Athena's gift of strategy triumphant over walls and armies. Among mortals, none pleased Athena more than Odysseus. His cunning was her own spirit reflected. When Poseidon cursed him to wander the seas, Athena became his guardian. When storms raged, she shielded him. When enemies plotted, she whispered in his ear. At last, after years of hardship, she guided him home to Ithaca. There, his halls were overrun with suitors feasting upon his wealth, mocking his absent throne. Athena disguised Odysseus as a beggar, allowing him to walk among them unnoticed. When the moment came, she revealed his strength. With her guiding hand, his arrows flew true, and the halls of Ithaca ran red with vengeance. Odysseus was restored, and with him, Athena's wisdom triumphed again, for victory belongs not only to the strong, but to the clever. When Orestes slew his mother to avenge his father, the Furies rose from the underworld to hound him. Their shrieks echoed in his ears, blood for blood, life for life. Desperate, he fled to Athens, where Athena appeared. She stood before the vengeful spirits, her spear raised. Enough, she declared. Vengeance alone cannot rule mankind. Let reason decide. And so, for the first time, a trial was held, mortals chosen to weigh guilt and innocence. When the votes were cast, they were equal. All eyes turned to Athena. I choose mercy, she said. Let Orestes be free. Let Athens be the city not of bloodshed, but of law. From then on, the court of the Areopagus was sacred, and justice itself was Athena's gift to the world. Once, Hephaestus desired Athena. But when he pursued her, she pushed him away, and his seed fell upon the earth. From the soil rose a child, strange and divine. Athena took the boy, Eurycthonius, and raised him as her own. She placed him in a box and entrusted him to the daughters of King Cecrops, warning them never to look inside. Curiosity consumed them. They opened it, and saw the child, half boy, half serpent. Driven mad by what they had seen, they flung themselves from the Acropolis. But Athena protected Eurycthonius, raising him in secret. He grew to become a king of Athens, wise and inventive, building temples to Athena and bringing honor to her name. Athena is not merely a goddess of war. She is the olive tree that feeds generations, the shield that protects the just, the voice that whispers to heroes to choose wisdom over rage. Her myths are not tales of destruction but of civilization. She gave mankind law, invention, and reason. She taught that strength is nothing without strategy, and power nothing without wisdom. Even now, her image endures, the Parthenon standing on its hill, the owl watching in the night, the olive branch a symbol of peace. Athena, the gray-eyed goddess, still guides those who seek victory not through fury, but through thought. Long before Perseus came to slay her, Medusa had once been a maiden of striking beauty, serving as a priestess in Athena's temple. Her hair gleamed like spun gold, and many said she rivaled the goddess herself. But Poseidon, ever driven by desire and envy, pursued Medusa. Within Athena's own temple, a place sacred and untouchable, he forced himself upon her. The stone columns trembled, the altars cracked, and Medusa cried out in despair. When Athena beheld the desecration, her heart burned with fury. Not at Poseidon, for he was her rival among the gods, untouchable in Olympus's hierarchy, but at Medusa, who had broken the sanctity of her temple. Your beauty has brought this, Athena declared, her voice cold as steel. Let it be stripped from you forever. In an instant, Medusa's golden hair writhed into hissing serpents. Her once lovely eyes became a curse. Whoever gazed upon them turned to stone. Cast out, hated and feared, Medusa became a monster. There was once a hero named Bellerophon, brave but mortal. He longed for Pegasus, the winged horse born from Medusa's blood, but no man could tame such a creature. In his dreams, Athena appeared, shimmering in silver armor. She laid before him a golden bridle. "Take this," she said. "With wisdom, not force, you will master him." Bellerophon awoke to find the bridle truly in his hands. When he approached Pegasus, the horse stamped and spread his wings. But at the sight of Athena's bridle, the beast bowed his head. Bellerophon mounted him, and together they soared into the skies. When King Iobade sent Bellerophon to slay the Chimera, a monster with the body of a lion, the head of a goat, and the tail of a serpent, Athena's gift saved him. From Pegasus's back, he rained down arrows, and at last drove a spear tipped with molten lead into the beast's throat. The Chimera suffocated in its own flames, and Bellerophon's name was sung in legend, all thanks to Athena's divine wisdom. Athena was not only the goddess of war, but also of arts and crafts. It is said she invented the aulos, a double flute. She carved it from the bones of a stag and played it with pride, her music echoing through Olympus. But Hera and Aphrodite laughed at her. "See how her cheeks puff like a frog's when she plays," they mocked. Athena, her pride wounded, cast the flute aside, letting it fall to earth. "Let mortals play it if they wish," she said coldly. The satyr Marsyas found it, and when he played, the music was enchanting. So great was his skill that he dared to challenge Apollo himself to a contest. But hubris has a price. Apollo defeated him and flayed him alive, his screams echoing in the mountains. And thus Athena's discarded gift became the seed of tragedy, a warning that even music born of wisdom can lead to ruin if pride consumes the heart. When Heracles was condemned by Hera to serve King Eurystheus, Athena often stood by him. In his battle with the Stymphalian birds, monstrous creatures with bronze beaks and feathers sharp as blades, Heracles despaired, for they swooped from the skies, too swift to strike. Then Athena appeared, placing into his hands a great bronze rattle crafted by Hephaestus. "Shake this," she said, "and drive them into the air." Heracles obeyed. The birds burst from the trees in a cloud of wings, and Heracles fired arrow after arrow until the flock lay silent on the ground. Athena guided him in other labors too, with counsel, with weapons, with calm wisdom when fury would have led him astray. She was his protector, just as she was for Odysseus.